welcome to Comics with B and W. I'm Wilson, and with me, as always, is.
Bobby, that's me.
And on today's show, we're going to be discussing The Old Guard, a comic from publisher Image Comics, written by Greg Rucka, with art by Leandro Fernandez, colors by Daniela Miwa, and lettering by Jody Wynn, and edited by Alejandro Arbona. So, welcome to another episode of Comics with B&W. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. If this is your first episode, hello. Our podcast is all about discussing what we believe to be some of the best indie comics currently available. Today's comic, The Old Guard, is one that I recommended, and I was actually surprised you hadn't already read this before.
Yeah, no, I'm a big Rucka fan, but I mostly know him for his DC stuff. I haven't really read any of his indie work.
Yeah, I read this purely because of the movie that was coming out. I
I
like.
didn't even know they made a movie until you told me about this.
Yes, it came out.
Netflix makes so many movies, it's hard to keep track of them all.
They do. They do. It was supposed to be a theatrical movie. It was supposed to come out in theaters in
Oh,
2020.
really?
Yes, in
Huh.
2020 it was supposed to come out in theaters. It was
Okay,
one of
before we get
the
to discussing, sorry.
No, I was going to say it was one of the many movies that was supposed to come out, but Netflix bought it and that's where it came out
Gotcha.
instead.
Is the movie worth watching before we get to the comic?
If Okay, so like when it released, I read this and there is a sequel comic to this as well. If you like this, I highly recommend the movie. If Because the movie it's does a very it's written by Rucka as well. He also wrote the movie. So he did basically what I think comic adaptation should do, which is he took very much the soul of the comic and then made the changes necessary to honestly make it better. I kind of like the movie a little bit more than the comic, just because some
Hmm.
of the things that they did there. But if
Okay,
you
I
if you like
gotcha.
this book, I definitely would recommend the movie.
Right. Well, we should probably actually talk about the comic on this comic podcast. So, what
Yes.
is this book about, Wilson?
All right. So, we'll go do not spoilers, but obviously want to make sure you are aware of what it is about a little bit. It's about well, I'll say this about four people who are quote unquote immortal warriors. There's a reason I say quote unquote, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. Andy, Nikki, Booker, and Joe are have been living from they're 200 to thousands of years old, and they're mercenaries. They're just going by living life, and in this comic especially, their immortality is being noticed by the wrong people, of course. And
And
it's
hijinks ensue.
yes, and it's basically just how they deal with that. So let's just go right into non-spoilers to start off with. For me, this book is a very interesting balance of character and plot because it very much is a plot-driven book. A lot of the things the characters do are because of the plot, but Rucka does a very good job of still balancing the character drama, so to speak, that happens throughout because he still gives a lot of the characters motivations for why they act the way they do. And I think that with the way the plot is, I won't necessarily I it's sort of a basic plot, but the strength of the book is still in its characters and the bond that they have with each other and the obstacles that they face as they go through the story in the book.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. And to give my general thoughts on the book, um, like you said, great character work by Rucka. Story's basic, but it gets the job done. However, I do have a critique that's not a spoiler, and
Okay.
that is issue one. This is a great book. I recommend it. I'll get that out of the way.
hmm
I did
hmm
not like issue one at all. I was confused. I didn't know what was going on, and I found no reason to be engaged in anything that was happening until the last two pages.
I com Okay, I completely agree. No, like it's
Really?
weird.
I
Yeah,
thought I thought I thought we could have some disagreement
no,
there.
I actually agree with that, which is interesting that you thought that as well, because I was confused also. I and I'm trying not to stumble upon my words too much, but because I realize I do that a lot. But one of the things that is really interesting when you read things in a binge, I kind of don't think of them as issues. I just think of them as one long
Hmm.
story.
Oh, did
So
you not read this month to month?
no, I didn't. I like I said, I read this when the Netflix show came out. Like this
Right,
is,
right, 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 right,
oh no,
right.
no, the Netflix movie. So I read this in a binge just really quickly. This and the sequel. So both of them are kind of just in my head as one big story.
Clarify,
So
we're only talking about the first menu
yeah, but
today.
yeah, I'll bring up the sequel sometimes, but we are only talking about the first, the Old Guard, uh, which is only 5 issues. But they
So you're
both,
saying what?
yeah, so they both sort of live in my head. But when I first was starting it, and I read that first issue, I thought it was a great, tail end of, oh, okay, now I kind of think I know what's happening, but I had no real clue why I would should care about anything that was going on in most of that first issue. But because
Hmm,
of the way that I read, I just kept going, so I didn't think too much about it, I guess. But
right.
then especially then once I reread it, which this is my second time reading it now. So when I reread it, I liked the first issue a lot more because I knew who these characters were, and I got a lot more of seeing who these characters were in that first issue that I didn't get the first time I read it.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see if I have that same reaction when I end up rereading it a few years from now. Um, Other things that I kind of didn't like, just to get those out of the way.
Yeah, go ahead.
Was not a fan of the art. Was not a fan of the art. I got it was doing something different. I got it was being unique and stylistic. Didn't work for me.
Hmm.
What about
I
you?
I do have a comment on the art too. I don't think it's bad.
Oh no, it's
It's
not bad. It just
yeah,
didn't work for
yes.
me.
It definitely was a more unique style. For me, I think its strength was I like the action that the art did.
Hmm.
I did like the action
There was some nice paneling. That was the highlight artistically for me.
for you. Yeah, the paneling. I can see that for sure. It wasn't bad in a sense that it was detrimental to the book in any way. I don't think, but I can definitely understand the uniqueness not really landing for you. The way they drew the humans, like the faces sort of bothered me a lot.
I'm down
Uh,
for some weird faces. Kaiji Ultimate Survivor is one of my favorite manga, but
mhm.
it's a gamble. It's not always gonna work.
Yes, that's really all that is. It's just one of those things, and with indie books especially, you get this not all the time, but there are a good amount of indie books where the art is more unique than even sometimes than the story itself that's being presented. And
And I'm 99% of that unique art in indie books is more interesting than the big two's house styles.
yes, but like you said, it's not always going to work, but it does. I don't think it necessarily, as long as it doesn't hurt the book and the story that
Right,
it's
and it
trying to
doesn't. It
tell.
doesn't at all.
Exactly, and the story is trying to tell. I can put up with art that isn't, in my top 10.
Oh, that reminds me.
Yeah.
Um, Bit of a disclaimer on this one. This book is not for kids. There
Oh,
is, speaking of the
yes.
art, there is full on nudity in this book. You get breast shots, you get
Yes.
penises, they're all over the
Which I
place.
completely forgot about. I was rereading it and then the because I remembered the action was extremely bloody. And I knew that,
Hmm.
this is still an indie book and indie they like to do, add a lot of cursing and stuff. So I was like, oh, yeah, I remember all that. But I completely forgot about the nudity. I was like, oh, wow. Like especially the
Guessing
penis
that didn't
shot.
make it into the movie?
I don't think so. I think the movies are, but I don't think there's nudity in it. I don't remember if there is. But I think
Hey, at least the nudity was equal opportunity in
it
this.
really was. Hold on,
Uh,
now I'm looking it up. Yeah, the movie is R, but I'm pretty sure it's because of the violence, not because of any nudity. If there was nudity, I
gotcha.
didn't notice it. It wasn't as blatant as it was in the book.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And before we get to spoilers, since we've covered the premise, we've both said we liked it, we recommend you check out this book. Who would you say this book is for? Who would you recommend this specifically to?
Well, definitely, I think anyone that likes Greg Rucka should read the book. I think
All Hail the
people.
King, one of the all-time best.
Yes, I mean he's like I said with the plot and character. very few people can really pull that off, that balance of doing a plot driven but still not forgetting character. That's it's a lot harder
And
than people.
after that first issue, I was really worried he was, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean
I
it's such a tough balance.
and anyone else?
Oh, and let me think.
Because I got one in my head
Yeah,
already.
go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, so if you're like me and you like cheesy movies from the 80s, if you're a Highlander fan, you're gonna
Oh,
love this
jeez.
book because it gives off some strong Highlander vibes.
Yeah.
Bunch of immortals coming together, battling. It's the good stuff. It's the good stuff. And you get and just like you see Connor McLeod's history as a Highlander in those movies, you get to see each of the main characters' unique backgrounds and histories here, and it's just wonderful. The art captures that stuff beautifully.
Yes. I really like the background stories that were told. I will also say only because it was brought up by my mom after she watched the movie. And I promise we're not going to talk about the movie too much, but I'm sorry. It's just there is a movie on this and the movie was my gateway. But if you like Wolverine, you
Okay, I'll give you. I'll hear you out on
yeah,
this.
if you like the character of Wolverine and just the immortality and the violence and that Wolverine sort of brings off, you'll probably like the characters in this book. They're a bit they're basically as damaged. Uh, and my mom literally, because she saw the movie before I did, she texted me and said, "Hey, I just saw the Old Guard. Are these people related to Wolverine?" Like that's what she asked me, and I was like, "No, they're not even in the same universe, mom. Like Wolverine is Marvel." And she's like, "No, no, 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 no. I'm sure they can totally be related to Wolverine." I'm like, "No,
Oh my
mom."
god. I mean, he has enough clones. Why not these guys?
So I thought that was great. But if you like uh I won't necessarily say historical fiction, but just history and
I'd say
fantasies.
history buffs will get a kick out of this. It does some interesting stuff with how the immortal characters have impacted history and their relationship with some famous events.
Yeah, it's more like historical fantasy because of how they, sort of move throughout time and stuff. But if you like that sort of being sprinkled in with your action, I think you could really enjoy this book.
Cool, cool. And with that, we will jump into spoilers.
All right, spoilers. So I mentioned the four. I want to mention the fifth person now, Nile. She is the new immortal, which happens at the last
You
when
gotta
the
have a POV character in newbie with
yes,
something like this every
in the
time. It's
last two
classic.
issues, yes. And even then, at the in the not two issues, two pages of the first issue. Even then, when I read that, I figured she was now probably part of this immortality thing, but I didn't know what that was. We still don't know what really makes them immortal. Like we don't know anything that's really going on with these
Yeah,
characters.
I like that they didn't explain where the immortality, quote unquote, comes from. It leaves like an air of mystery without feeling unresolved.
Yes, that's one of the things I thought. Because I said, hold on, let me look up something real quick. I wrote... Oh, okay, there it is. So that's something I thought was very good. We were talking about the plot. It's pretty basic, but and it's elevated by the characters. I love that the idea of immortal warriors isn't original, or the idea of the villain in this is basically the doctors and pharmaceutical bigwigs trying to take their blood and discover the secrets to immortality. As none of that's original. I do like that the
Villain was
twist.
pretty lame and
Not yeah,
generic.
I didn't care for the villain at all. It's another thing. I think the villain is better in the movie. Uh,
Oh, nice.
yes, not like 1,000 times better or anything, but just they did a bit more in the movie.
They gave him
Just
some more meat.
yes, there's just to help out a little bit there. One of the things I liked was that they actually, and I said quote unquote immortal. They aren't actually immortal. At some point, they do die.
They
They
just
just
don't know when.
exactly just don't know when. So I did like that sort of
It was an
twist.
interesting twist on the formula, yeah.
Exactly, and because especially because you meet these people and you're all immortal together, and then as we see, like one of the historical stories that's being told to Nile, as most of these are basically told to Nile, is that they met other people and then they died and then they're alone. So now they're
Hmm.
just going around throughout the world by themselves, and then the way they find each other is that they dream about each other, and then that's how they all discovered that Nile was now a part of their group of immortals. And I thought that was pretty cool that that's how they find each other. And I like that they didn't understand what was happening. Andy was talking about how she was dreaming of this woman for a long time, and she had no idea what that was about
Hmm.
until one day they found each other.
Yeah. Speaking of Andy, what did you think of our protagonist?
Andy, I think, has a very interesting journey because you don't really get what her journey is until basically till the last issue, I think anyway,
Hmm.
where her and Niall's relationship, how important that was to
Oh yeah,
Andy's
I st
journey.
I started getting that feeling from I think issue 3 because the
Hmm.
first couple issues, Andy wasn't doing much for me, but once her and Niall were working together and she was acting as a mentor, it all clicked for me, and I suddenly started really liking her character.
Yes, exactly. Once she and Niall really start getting that rapport with each other, that's when Andy really starts to shine. And I'm well, we're in spoilers anyway. So, and then after Booker's betrayal, when Booker is like, "Hey, I'm doing this for you, Andy," because up until Niall, Booker was the youngest one. He was, I think they said, 200 years
Hmm.
old. And my guess is by the time he met Andy and Nicki and Joe, Andy was probably already checked out. She's been kind of uninterested and just
She's
empty
over
inside.
6,000, right?
Yes, she's over 6,000 years old. So, she has to have been basically empty inside and just doesn't really care about really anything other than just waiting for the day when she dies. So
And
I
yet somehow she still finds it in her to care about these newbies.
exactly. And then that's sort of her journey when she's like, I want a purpose to live, and my purpose to live is for you, is for my team, it's for everyone, it's for you, you guys around me. And she looks and it's like she doesn't realize that or want to admit it, but through her conversations with Niall, she realizes that that's what it is. That's why she isn't ready to die yet, and that's why Booker's betrayal hurts so much for her, especially. And I thought that,
Great subversion of the usual I'm immortal, oh woe is me, I can't die trope.
yes, I thought that was wonderful. I thought that was really good how that worked out because this is something when I first read it, I actually didn't see Booker's betrayal coming.
Neither did
Like,
I.
yes,
In
I thought,
fact, when they have his death fake out at the end of issue 2, I was like, oh man, I was really starting to like that guy. Is he dead?
me too. Like, I was like, how
Well
did he
played.
already die? I was even like until Niall basically started spelling it out. Like, you can't access the internet in a cave. I was like, that's right, you can't. I was just like, huh.
I just assumed we were working on comic book
Me
logic.
too. That's how I felt the entire time. So I was just like, of course he can just get it through the internet on a computer without trying to check for Wi-Fi. Who does that? Who
Have
cares?
you seen how many movies have characters just on their laptop in the car?
Exactly. So I really did not think about it at all. But then also at the end, when they're like, that's why he wasn't taken, and they just blew him up because he could just come back, most likely, and he would have to lead Andy and Niall to the place. So I was like, yeah, I get that makes sense. Why didn't I think of any of that? It was just like they were all laid out. So I thought that was
And
really
that's
good.
how you do a good twist. You spell
Exactly.
it out for them, and if they don't see it, it's our fault as the readers.
Exactly. I thought Booker's betrayal was a really good twist. Even in it's another one of those things where in the I'm trying not to say this too often, I promise, but in the movie it's even more heartbreaking. But
Oof.
Like, you really gotta check out the movie if you like the book. They did a really good job. Like I said, I kind of like the movie a little bit more, but just some of the things that they did was just really good. But yeah, but I really liked Booker's
Okay, can I
portrayal.
ask one more question about the movie?
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
How thick is Booker's French accent in the movie?
Oh, I'm pretty sure they got a French actor, so
Oh, nice.
because I'm pretty sure they got. I think they have two French actors because I think a French actor also plays Nicky, but I don't know if he's
Hmm.
French in the movie. I don't remember. I haven't watched it in months, so I don't remember too much.
Okay.
But speaking of Nikki, let's talk about Nikki and Joe just for a second.
The
These two,
best characters in the
they
book.
really are. I kind of feel a little bit bad for them because these two are probably the two that are most like beholden to the plot. But
Yeah,
Ruck,
because they're the ones who get kidnapped.
yeah,
Niall and Andy are the main characters. Booker is the traitor, and these two end up just sort of along for the ride. But the moments they get are the fucking
yes. Because
highlights.
like Rucka still very much makes sure to give them moments with each other that just breathes and that breathes life into their romance and adds so much heart to the entire series, really. One of the
For those of
things
you who don't know, Rucka loves the gays. He has always been very, very good to us.
it's incredible. And one of the things again in the speech that uh, Joe gives Nick about Nikki about when the guy says, "What is he, your
About
boyfriend?"
the way he feels about him.
Yes, it
That
is.
was, oh my god, that was perfect writing.
It's so good. And apparently, for the movie, Ruckus said he would only do the movie if they did not cut that speech out at all. So yes, that speech is in the
Yes, I
movie,
love
ladies and
it.
gentlemen, and the actor does it beautifully, and it's so good. It's such a good, and they really are. They're two
I
of
kind of want to read the whole thing out loud, but I don't think I could do it justice.
I didn't even write it down. I just if honestly just it's I don't remember what issue it is. I think issue 3 or 4. I think
I
three.
think it's issue 3.
3. Yeah, I think so too. But it really is a beautiful scene, and it's a really beautiful moment. And then they have another moment when they're captured.
When they're tired of waiting.
Yes, and they're just when they're talking about I forgot what place it was. I think Malta or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're talking about how they used to vacation in Malta, and they're having so much life within them, even though they're older than Booker, younger, much younger than Andy, but they still have so much love and life within them and for each other. It was just so refreshing every time we got those small moments between them, and I especially loved near the end when they tricked the doctor into letting them go because Andy and Niall and Booker are now taking over to get them. So
And
the
then they
doc,
kill him anyway because he's
yeah,
still a bastard.
exactly, and then they kill him anyway. And I always love that stuff because I always hate when revenge or any type of story where people are captured or they get whoever they're going after, then they get to the person, they're like, you know what, I'll just let you live because that's worse. It's like, no, kill them, and they did. And they're like,
This must be a real pet peeve of yours. You brought this up when we talked Dead Legends too.
I did. It is a huge pet peeve. It's one of the only reasons well, not the only reason, but it's one of the big reasons I really like the first Deadpool movies because he killed the guy at the
Hmm.
end. But I
But no,
really like.
Nikki and Joe, they're as charming as their love is for each other. Rucka does also make sure to give them character outside of it. They're not the most distinguishable from each other. They have most of their traits in common, but they do
Yes.
have other traits. They're both energetic. They're both full of life still. But they both still share the same weariness. And most charming of all to me, most endearing for me, was just their complete and utter confidence that Andy was going to come and save them, but also at the same time their boredom when they're tired of waiting and just save themselves.
Yes, absolutely. I love that they were just like when Andy finally walks through, they're like, "Well, we got tired of waiting." Like what are you're taking so long?
But still, like, they never doubted she was going to come at all.
Hmm. Because I think they knew more so than Andy even knew that she cares about them in her own way. But it's
Hmm.
just she's been alive for so long. Kind of she kind of gets in her own head about how she feels about everything.
Right. Okay, spoil this for me. Do they get more to do in the sequel?
uh, yes, but they still aren't main characters.
It's still the
It's
Andy and
it's
Niall show.
still very much Andy Nile, and it's even more so. Yeah, it's still very much Andy Nile. Like I definitely don't want to spoil it because uh there's some things that happen in it with Andy especially that's pretty huge. That basically I'm now just waiting for the third book. Let me just say it that way. Like let
Gotcha.
me just say it that way. Like there's it's really good though, but there's some big things that happens in that book because
Okay.
Rucka teases a lot about Andy's psyche in this one and how empty she is, but then he ends it with her being like this is what I want to care about. These people are who I'm going to care about, and then they kick out Booker because of his betrayal. So in the sequel, a lot of things sort of come back to haunt Andy, especially.
Oof. But I gotcha, I
But
gotcha.
they
I just
are
wanted to know. I just
yeah
wanted to know if they had a bigger role, yes or no.
yeah.
uh,
Like depending on obviously I don't know if we'll get to the sequel, but if this podcast lasts long enough, we will surely do the sequel at some point. But
yeah.
there's so many other books, I don't want to just rush to that immediately. But
And one more main character to discuss. What you think of Niall?
so yeah, so Niall, as you said earlier, she's the POV character. She's the character they tell a lot of the stories to, as to why you shouldn't have relationships, why you shouldn't go for your family, because she is a army medic, a marine medic, and I think that she was
Don't
good.
need the army bros coming at us for mixing those two
Yeah,
up.
tell me about it. Uh, as a Navy brat, trust me. Um, but she was good for what her purpose in the story was. I think that it was interesting. Rucker gave her so many jobs just so he didn't have to do too many other
Ex-
things. Like
like
she
explain how she knows how to do so much.
Yeah, it's just like she had. I think they gave her age, and she's like in her mid 20s or something. And she's like, "Yeah, I've done all these jobs," and it's just like, "Sure," It's just like, why not? Like, I'll accept that because it
I'm
just.
about to turn 23, and my only paying job has been as a camp counselor.
I've had two paying jobs, and one was because my stepdad. So it's just one of those things. But to be fair, I'm pretty sure there are people that are like that have had many jobs. So
Oh yeah, absolutely crazy people whose lives I've never want.
yeah. So tell me about it. So I don't think it's too far out the logic. It's just one of those things where you know what, I'll let this one slide. Sure, why not?
It did feel a bit like quirky. Okay, it's kind of an informed character trait, but I'll let it slide because she's got enough going on in terms of actual depth.
Exactly. And I do like, I definitely liked that through her, we got to learn. And as you were saying with the first issue, you didn't really know what was going on. We had to learn basically everything as she learned everything, and for better or
Which is why we
worse.
learned absolutely nothing in issue 1 because she wasn't part of the team yet.
Exactly. And like for better or worse, like that can be good or bad in your storytelling when you do a character like that and you don't introduce them to the other main group till the second issue. And sometimes that can be a bad thing, but when Rucka's doing it, it works out eventually. But I really liked how, again, just her relationship with Andy I thought was just really good.
Yeah, probably the moment where Andy tells Niall how lucky she is to be able to have photos of her family is my second
Mm.
favorite moment of the book after the speech.
Hmm. I definitely like that. One of the most heartbreaking things was Booker talking about why she shouldn't visit her family
Hmm.
because they'll notice. I mean, because Niall obviously wants to be like everyone's gonna think I've gone AWOL. Everyone's gonna think I just left, and it's gonna look bad on her, and it's gonna look bad on her family and everything like that. And Booker's like, you have to just kind of let that go, because if your family notice is going to continue to age, and they're going to notice you're not aging, and they're going to figure out why eventually, and they're going to want that. They're going to want what you have, and you're not going to be able to share it with them. Like one of the things I
Right.
thought really was just really good was that there was no secret to immortality in this book. It wasn't in
Hmm.
their blood. They weren't really immortal. They just their time to die just hadn't happened yet. So I just thought that was really, and that's a speech that they gave Nicki and
God,
Joe.
you brought up Deadpool a bit before. It's kind of like how Deadpool can't go to hell because death kicks him out every time he gets there.
Yeah, that's true. And it's so I just think that's such a great thing, and you have such a modern person being thrust into this group of people who have been or hundreds of years old, and
Yeah,
I
but
thought that was really
also
cool.
to jump on that, they also showed that Booker's words and his experience weren't universal because Andy did have a man who grew old with her and who she settled down with and had a great happy life with, and
Hmm.
nothing went wrong.
Yeah, indeed, because he basically had to force Andy to leave because she wanted to just stay, and he's like, no, uh, I'm just sitting here, I'm dying. Other people around us are going to start asking questions, so you have to go.
That
And
dude was a champ.
I really liked that story. Like
Yeah.
really some of the background stories, like the story when how Nikki and Joe met, where they met on the battlefield, and they just kept killing each other.
That was so
And
good.
I thought that was so good, and like just years of just doing that and just realizing like we can't die. It's just like wait. So I really liked a
Well, if we
lot of
can't
the
kill each other,
background.
we may as well fuck.
Right. I really liked a lot of the historical backgrounds, and they continue that in the sequel. That is something that continues. They go a lot more into Andy's because she's so old. She's been
She's
through
got
a
so many
lot,
stories.
so they go into a lot more of Andy's background stories.
Nice. Be
But
kind
yeah,
of cool if they ended up doing a time skip, so like we end up seeing Niall having a bunch of stories down the line.
ooh, that would be cool. That'd be interesting having a sort of a issue. Like let's have it be a whole series, but just like an issue that takes place in like year 10,001 or something. And we just see Nile just hanging out with new immortals, and she's like, "I'm 8,000 years
We will
old."
turn everything into legacy characters.
Do not think I can't do it, because I can. And again, just speaking on the sequel, with how it ends, trust me, Nile, Nile's their legacy. She really is,
Nice.
and they accept that. But yeah, speaking on the villain, just for a second, one of the things I did like was just the facade that he gives off. I always like those villains that think that they're hot shit, but they're just like they try to be that intimidating guy. We meet him, he's lifting weights and he kills. I don't remember if he killed Joe or Nikki. It was one of those, one of them. I don't remember which one he killed, but he killed one of them just to see them come back after they got captured. And he tries to be all this. Uh,
He tries to be a Bond villain,
yeah, but
but
obviously it's
ultimately,
just his money, and he has guards and security. That's really the actual muscle. And then in the end, because then in the end, after they rescue
he's
Nikki and
hiding in the
Joe,
toilet.
he's hiding in the bathtub, and he's just like, "Wait, please don't kill me." He's just like a little curled up like a child, and
And they all
and
just
they
shoot the fuck
kill
out of
him
him.
anyway. I love that so much. Uh, but yeah, he wasn't original or really all that unique. Oh, a character we haven't talked about is Copley.
Fuck Copley.
Yeah, one of the things like Copley is he again the movie did Copley better. Copley's
Marry the
interesting.
damn movie if you love it so much.
I'm trying not to, but Copley being the catalyst in this, it's a huge fuck Copley. It really is. This book, like it's not fuck Copley. It's a little fuck Copley in the movie, but not as much as the book is fuck Copley. He honestly, and it's weird because he's pretty underserved in this story for how big of a role he probably could have had.
Mm.
And I will say his journey isn't done. He is in the sequel. And I think the reason he worked better in the movie is the way Rucka uses him in the sequel is different than he used him in this,
And it influenced the
and I
movie.
think it influenced the movie because they
Gotcha.
put that breadcrumb in a lot earlier. Because in this, he's just an asshole. Like there's nothing really redeeming about him to where you're just like, so he's just an asshole. And then the sequel, they add a lot more depth to the character, so it's just like, oh, I still think you're an asshole, but okay. So I think
Okay, that's fair.
yeah, I think that was added into the movie a lot earlier. A lot of things
Yeah.
actually from the sequel were in the movie. So if you do want to watch the movie, I would also recommend reading the sequel because they drop a
Watch
lot
the
of
movie
hints.
just so you shut up about it.
They drop a lot of hints about
I don't
the
really mind. I'm,
sequel.
I'm just, I'm
No,
just,
I
I'm just
know.
like,
I'm just imagining people listening to this, like, God damn it, Wilson, we get it. You know, it's like, uh, but yeah. So I think that it's only five. Both of them are only 5 issues, so it's not that that long of a book. I'm trying to think of anything else we haven't talked about just yet.
we mentioned the art back in non-spoilers. You have any notes about the lettering?
Um, I think I think the lettering did its job. I'm not. I don't really remember any moments that really stuck out to me much. I do think there were a couple.
I think just the general font was a nice choice. It matched the historical tone, the historical genre rather.
Yes, I agree with
Yeah,
that. Like
it
I
didn't do
don't.
it didn't do anything crazy.
Yeah, I think it's sort of just this. I don't want to say standard because that sounds too average, but it was just good. It didn't distract from anything. It didn't do anything too unique to be too memorable, but it did its job. They did their job, the letterer. So which in the end is what you want them to do. So
And good lettering is still nothing to snort at. There's plenty of
yes,
bad letterers out there. Always hire professional kids.
absolutely, absolutely. It's like me not having anything to say about it is not a bad thing at all. That's actually a really good thing because that meant it was good. So I'm just like it was good. It I was able to read what was happening. It's like I've seen bad lettering. It can be annoying. So, final thoughts. Let's get into final thoughts just real quick. This, as we said earlier, it's a basic plot, but there's nothing wrong with basic plots if you have interesting characters and you still tell the plot in an interesting way and you add a little bit of uniqueness and originality to it, especially which Rucka did with this book. He gave us interesting characters and he put his own spin on the immortality warrior trope, so to speak.
And he did
So,
all of that while serving the gays and having some interesting messages and thoughts about the notions of immortality, and while exploring various historical circumstances and doing things with them that we really haven't seen before.
absolutely. What
All right.
do you have a rating system for this one?
Ah, yes, our rating with our brand new scoring system. Tell me, Wilson,
Yes.
how many regenerations out of 6,000 years will you give this?
Wow. I'll give this 4,500 generations.
With 4,500 generations?
Yes.
That's a lot of times to die, but I guess in 6,000 years, you're bound to plenty of times. I will give this a solid. Well, yeah, I know what I think of 4,500 regenerations for this book sounds good. I think you got it
Right?
right there.
Right? I think that's fair.
All right,
Yeah.
that's all for today. I am Bobby. Bobby, you can find me at Bobby L. Singer on Twitter, and you can email me at samuel.singer98@gmail.com.
And I'm Wilson. You can find me at Dead Letter Poets on Twitter and email me at smithwilson72@gmail.com. If you have anything you want us to review or discuss, any indie books that you love, please send us an email and let us know.
So long as it's not Marvel or DC, we are happy to read anything that you think deserves to be highlighted on the show. We love ourselves good comics.
Absolutely. All right. Peace out.
Take care.